what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I'm back today with another client interview for you guys. Today we have Michael on, and Michael just recently finishes the summer internship recruiting process, and had a very successful outcome. And so we just wanted to get him on here and kind of talk about his experiences with you guys a little bit. So, Michael, thank you for taking the time, and we're really excited to be talking to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So to start, if you can maybe just introduce yourself a little bit to kind of our listeners, like whatever you feel like sharing, but just tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So again, my name is Michael. I'm currently a rising junior at Northeastern University, and I'm double majoring in finance and fintech. So I kind of as a candidate, I felt like I was pretty strong going in. I had over a 3.85 GPA, but I did attend a non-target school as a result for investment banking particularly. But I had a lot of relevant internships, with a middle market investment bank and a hedge fund going in. So I thought I'd be pretty strong, but realized really quickly there's a lot of other strong candidates and a lot of other factors that play into kind of summer analyst recruiting. So yeah, I mean, obviously finding Wall Street Mastermind was a game changer for me. I mean, I don't think I'd be like where I am today because of them, and especially such a short amount of time. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So take us back to the beginning, man. So obviously, I don't know how long. It sounds like you have a lot of relevant experience, which typically means you've known you want to do banking for a while, right? Because you've been building up your resume and things like that. So how long have you been kind of working on this recruiting thing, and how are things going for you
Uh,
originally?
yeah. So I believe I started recruiting around like February of last year. And I kind of, it's actually funny. I stumbled upon Wall Street Mastermind a while ago. I think my sophomore going to the fall semester. And I had to schedule a call with you, and I spoke with another student. And as most people are, I mean, I was kind of skeptical because in the beginning, just because it seemed a little too good to be true. You had a lot of successful candidates, and but I ultimately ended up not joining the first time, and thought, like, if other people could do it without this program, maybe I could try to do it too. So I took a stab at it. And like statistics wise, I think I applied to over 40 or 30 to 40 banks. I only got 2 interviews, and the 2 interviews were at the same bank, just in different groups.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I got to the interviews, and I thought, like, okay, I have two chances here. Didn't even get past the first round, unfortunately. And these for either one. Yeah. And this is with all the relevant experience and, the, strong candidate profile, at least in my opinion.
Mhm.
So, I kind of looked back at it, and I was kind of getting worried because my friends were already getting offers from, like, RBC, who was the first bank to go through the recruiting process. And then every so often, like, I would see like the elite boutiques going off one by one, finishing up. So I started getting kind of scared. So I reached back out to Sam, to you, and Wall Street Mastermind, and saw, like, okay, I could either kind of look at this from a holistic perspective and think, all right, am I going to go and regret not being able to break in my junior year? And then, that just makes it 10 times, 100 times harder full-time recruiting. So decided to, go through with it. And within 2 months, I mean, things just changed. Like, I think the statistic wise, I went from 2 interviews with 40 banks versus, like, now I had 7 interviews, and potentially more given, like, if I decide to not sign my offer now and stay with the program.
Wow, that's amazing, man. So February. So you started recruiting February last year. You found this, what you said, fall semester or sophomore year? Wait, no.
Yeah. Yeah, fall semester sophomore year, because, like, I'm in a 5-year program.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. So fall semester of your sophomore year. Sophomore year is really your third year in college, basically.
pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. So, but sophomore, fall semester, which is basically like you found this right before summer internship recruiting started, because summer internship recruiting usually starts the second semester of sophomore year,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went through that first part. You went through that first part of recruiting during your spring semester, sophomore year, all on your own.
Yep.
Then by the time you came back to us, it was what, like May, April?
Yeah. Like, End of April, yeah.
End of April of sophomore year, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh wait, no. End of April of sophomore year or junior year?
Yeah, because I'm still considered a sophomore because like I still have 2 more years. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So basically, you tried on your own for a
Like a
good
while.
6 months at least.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Um, yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned a really interesting point, which is, and this is something that we get a lot too, which is a lot of people think, well, I know all these other people that got jobs without using Wall Street Mastermind, so
Yeah.
why not me, right? Um, the thing is, like, Wall Street Mastermind, like, we've only been around for probably a little over 2 years.
Yeah.
And now that you've been in the program, you know, like, we don't work with that many students, right? It's not like we're working with hundreds and hundreds of students at a time, right?
Yeah.
And so chances are most people are gonna like you probably didn't personally know anyone who's done this program before.
No.
Yeah. And so it's easy for people to look around and see like, well, what are the people that I know doing when it comes to getting these jobs? And typically what people are doing are, I don't know, like what were you doing before Wall Street Mastermind? Like what were the resources that you were using? Probably the same
Yeah.
thing that all your friends were using, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in terms of technical interview questions, I was going through I think everyone and their mother knows by this time, the Breaking into Wall Street guide, the 400 question guide. And I was kind of just, I felt like I was memorizing though at that point because they don't really go too deep into the financial concepts and the accounting concepts. It's more of just like regurgitate what it says.
Right.
And I think in my 2 interviews I had at that one bank before your program, they kind of just really through some curveballs that were outside the guide. But when I was going through your technical modules, I just kind of realized it's just reframed the same question. And I would have gotten that if I really understood the concepts, I felt like.
Mhm.
In terms of networking, I didn't network. I didn't really know exactly how to do it, like how to properly and efficiently, reach out to, current bankers and current alumni.
Yeah.
And then behaviorally, I was just Googling like typical frameworks for behavioral answers. And as a result, I'm sure hundreds of millions of kids are doing this also. So the answers come out pretty similar and just not that like memorable.
Mhm.
And then, I worked with one of your coaches, Allison, who was a huge help. She was also one of the coaches at Wall Street Mastermind who helped with frame my behavioral answers from scratch.
Mhm.
Um, while you're also helping me reframe from scratch my resume. And then by the end of the 7 interviews I had, everyone complimented me at the end about, the answers that I given, especially the behavioral ones. So, I mean, it was just, again, just a game changer. Like, you don't really, for the fact that I interviewed to say that, I think it really speaks volumes to the program. It's just like pretty huge.
Yeah. I mean, those are all great points. So, like, coming back to finish my thought, so before you were kind of looking around saying, well, how are my other friends getting these jobs? Oh, they're using the Wall Street Oasis guides or the Breaking the Wall Street guides. And so if that's what everyone I know is doing,
Yeah.
human nature is it's easier to say like, well, let me just do that too.
Yeah.
That's what everyone who's getting these jobs are doing. In reality, the other thing that you mentioned is like, well, statistically though, when you really think about it, the reason why everyone you know is doing that is because Wall Street Oasis and like mergers and acquisitions or breaking in Wall Street, they've been around for so long, right? They've been
Yeah.
around for over 10 years. They're kind of like the industry standard now, which is like everybody's using it. But if I ask you like how many people got in using Wall Street Oasis or mergers and acquisitions versus how many people did those exact same things and didn't get in,
Yeah.
the second group is much bigger than the first group.
Exactly. Yeah.
But people like tend to, I don't know, there's this little like psychologically, I'm sure there's some scientific concept that explains why humans do this, but like we choose to see what we want to see, right? And
Yeah.
we're,
Exactly.
oh, let me look at the 1% who actually was able to get in that way, but then we ignore the other 99%. Um, if you're like someone who plays the odds, like those are horrible odds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Versus in our program, like, yeah, we have a lot fewer people have actually gone through our program. And that's actually by design because we don't work with everybody. But in our program, over 90% of the clients who actually like go through the entire program and actually do the work, they end up getting into banking, right? So, the odds are much, much, much more in your favor when you use our methodology, but it could be scary because you don't really know anyone else that's doing this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And plus, I remember my initial like thought, as I mentioned earlier, was like, it was too good to be true. When you say it's over, I think at that time it was like over like 92% on the website. And I was just looking, I was like, this does not seem real. And I was just looking at like the testimonials on your website, and I was like, there's no way, like, this has to be like somewhat fabricated or something. And that was my initial thought. And I just went in now after completing the program, like, at most you don't, take on more than 20 students at a time. Everyone's super supportive in like the community there, like the Slack channel, the Facebook groups, and then just like finishing within like 2 months. I thought that was like record time, and versus what I was doing before. It was just like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, anything I can do to help back the wolf pack, honestly, at this point, like, that's what I'm trying to do.
It's funny because now you're sitting here doing this interview, and someone else is going to be listening to this interview in the future and saying, "Dude, this is too good to be true."
Yeah, exactly.
So we've come full circle, but
Yeah,
um, no, I mean that's funny. So, like, look, I mean, thank you for sharing that because look, a lot of people have have kind of like felt the exact same way you felt, right? Or like, and a lot
yeah,
in the future might feel the exact same way you previously felt, which is just like, dude, if it's too good to be true, then probably it's too good to be true, right?
yeah,
Reality is like it's not really too good to be true because
yeah,
um, we're not the cheapest program out there, right?
yeah,
In fact, we're probably one of the higher price point programs versus definitely versus like Wall Street Oasis or Mergers and Acquisitions. So, but at the end of the day, though, you get what you pay for.
exactly.
So it's not really too good to be true. It'd be too good to be true if I said, "Hey, Michael, come in. I'm gonna charge you $200, and all this time with you, just
Yeah,
hours and hours and hours teaching you, helping you rewrite all your answers for your behavioral, and rewriting all of your application materials, and doing like biweekly office hours, and hey, message us anytime, like all the things that we do in the program, like." That would be if I said that you should probably run the other way.
yeah,
And so I think that's the part that people don't understand is like, look, um, really like you get what you pay for. And so it just comes down to like, are you looking for the cheapest thing out there, which is how honestly how a lot of people shop, or are you looking for the highest quality?
yeah,
Right. But either way, you're making a trade-off, right?
yeah,
And I always try to tell people is like, not that one is wrong and the other one is right, but it depends on what you're buying,
exactly.
right? Are you buying something that's really, really important where quality really matters because there's big implications to, the outcome or like the end result, right? Or are you buying something that's not that consequential? Like, dude, if I'm buying I don't know, boba drink,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
tastes bad, then whatever, I just throw it away, right? Because my career and I mess it up, like I can't just throw it away. I have to live with that forever.
yeah,
So I think like it comes down to kind of like how you think about um, the decision that's in front of you and what your decision making framework or what your decision making criteria is, right? And
yeah.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that kind of definitely comes to it comes to mind is like when I first joined, first like tried to join. I think one of the biggest deterrents at the time was the price point, right? I'm gonna be frank, because in college, like that's a lot of money. No matter like even like $20 is a lot of money in college. You could do a lot with that. But I remember I kind of really looked back after our second call and was like, okay, I mean, I could put it, the money and the investment up front, and there's no difference between, you putting a down payment on a house or a car, because these are very important purchases that will like last your life, a long time, and career, sometimes a lifetime. So I thought, I think the ROI is a lot greater if I get an internship and, ultimately a full-time offer.
Uh,
And honestly, like, to be very like speak freely here, after getting the contract, like I could pay off the loan I took for this program within like 2-3 weeks. So it's like, I get it. It's like scary. I know a lot of candidates are probably gonna be deterred by that initially, but like just to say like it's worth every penny, and I would do it again if I had to do it again.
Probably wish you did it sooner, to be honest.
That too, yeah. I missed out on a lot of opportunities, but
The 30 or 40 banks that you applied to, you probably would have gotten a lot more than just 2 interviews, and you probably would have done better in the interviews you got, right?
exactly, yeah,
You Um, but hey, I mean, it's better late than never.
yeah, yeah,
But to your point, like basically the light bulb that went off in your head is like you started viewing this as an investment, as a
yeah,
cost. You're like,
yeah.
hey, if these guys can really get me a job, and they really have like over 90% success rate, then this is gonna more than pay for itself, right? Like your summer internship. I mean, most banking summer internships probably pay what, like between $20,000 to $30,000
Yeah,
summer.
yeah,
So we charge nowhere near that.
yeah.
um, so okay, so then like, but coming back to the program itself, though, you kind of like talked a little bit about this earlier. Like you talked about like, hey, getting compliments on your interview answers, especially the behaviorals and things like that. But like, what would you say? Like, what was the biggest difference for you, like before and after the program? Because like, so for example, if we use just the behavioral thing that you talked about, how different can your behaviorals really be? Because like most people, I think they think that they probably do exactly what you did before, which is like, hey, go on Google, find out like most common investment banking behavioral.
And that's exactly what I typed.
And then,
Yeah,
and then I was like, okay, tell me about yourself. Why do you want to do banking? Why
yeah,
bank? And then you just go and like you probably just want to wrote out your answers and practice it, right?
exactly, yeah.
How much better can your answers get from when you just do that? I mean, it can't be that different, right?
I mean, I'm gonna have to interject there. It's definitely different. At the surface level, it probably doesn't seem different at all. Because like people think like, oh, it's my personal story. It'll be different from most people. But these Google searches that you do about the behavioral answers, like you end up just copying it because I think humans are inherently lazy, and we just fill in the gaps with whatever makes sense with whatever was successful on the page.
Mm.
Um, but like working with Allison one-on-one with the behavioral answers, for example, since we're on the topic, like she literally, like, I sent her my initial draft of what I used from Google searches and stuff, and initially the modules, and then she just literally tore it apart and just like edits on edits, and we went through like 4 or 5 iterations between one another. She's super responsive, and by the end, like it was just like I was a completely different person, like just an interview animal in behavioral. It was like everyone was just super impressed with the answers I gave. And usually like I'm the one asking before the program, like, how did the interview go? Like if I want feedback, if I get rejected, which mostly was the case before the program. But then now it's like them reaching out through email or at the end of the interview, speaking to me saying like, hey, like those interviews answers were great. I remember one of the MDs I spoke with at the current place that I'll be working at next summer. Actually, when I sent her a thank you email, she replied and said like, I really loved your answers. Like, and this was like 3 days after, by the way, like she replied, and she still remembered exactly, like she highlights certain things I sent the story. And I was just like blown away. And this is like a managing director. Usually they seem so standoffish, especially when you're going through interviews. And I was just like blown away, and ultimately accepted that offer. Yeah.
Allison's amazing. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, all the coaches that we have, we screen them pretty hard, and we train them obviously too on like we have our own proprietary frameworks that we have you guys use it. That because you've gone through the program.
Yeah.
But also they all had a lot of experiences with recruiting. Like she was like the recruiting captain for Harvard when she was at Barclays, and she worked on the buy side. She worked for Point72. Like those
Yeah.
are very, very hard places to get offers from, right?
Yeah.
And just like anything else in life, like I feel like behaviorals is one of those things where people always feel like, no, my behaviorals are great. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
better. But just like anything else in life, like there's levels to this, right?
Yeah.
if there's someone else out there that's better than you are currently at interviewing, they could probably take whatever story or whatever answers you have and just make it better.
Exactly. Yeah.
We're not making things up that never happened. Like, you have to tell us what you've done, but then like once you have the kind of the core of the story that you want to use, there's a lot of things you can do to it to just make it sound better and make it more relevant and make it more impressive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, those are things that if you try to do it yourself, you're not going to be able to see what you don't already see,
Yeah. Exactly.
which is what I always try to explain to people. When people are like, no, I just need help with the technicals. I don't need help on the.
Yeah.
It's probably how you felt too, right? You're like,
Yeah.
with the technicals. I don't need help with the behaviorals, right?
Yeah.
Um, coming to the technical side, then, like you said before, you're kind of just like memorizing and regurgitating, and then like when you got the curveballs, you couldn't really answer them. But then when you came into the program, you realize that, oh, like if I had this, then I would have been able to answer those questions. Like, a common question we always get from people is like, what's so different about like what you guys are teaching versus what's already in the guides? Like, what would you say is the biggest difference?
Yeah. I mean, first off, with the technical questions, it's definitely the modules I think is a game changer. So in the program, like you get introduced to like a behavioral module, and then you start off with the networking module, then you get to the behavioral questions, and then lastly it's a technical module. And in the technical module is basically, Sam as a teacher will go through one by one the main topics that are asked in the investment banking interviews, and he goes really in depth with the videos. Like he'll walk you through exactly what's happening, like in the financial statements, for example. The valuation questions, not just kind of say exactly what the answer is, but tell you the reasoning behind it and why. And then if you're still confused after that, we have you will get access to like a Slack channel, a Facebook group that you have access to answer questions. And Sam's on it 24/7. Then the Wolf Pack or the other community members is like there to answer your questions also if you're still confused about a topic. So I think that really helped and was really really big in comparison to like a classic guide from Wall Street Oasis or Breaking to Wall Street.
Mhm.
Um, and like one example of when this really helped was like in one of my second round interviews. It was at like one of the top middle market banks in their technology group, and I had no idea that they were going to be super technical because my first round was supposed to be a very casual coffee chat. But at the end, they told him like they don't let anyone know on purpose because they want you to know, like make sure you actually know the concepts, not just memorize the guides. And they asked 5 questions that were just off the guides, and like I was able to nail them, and I moved on to the second round. And apparently there was only about 10 people in that second round, and then a super day after that where they'll narrow it down to like 4. Um, and like I remember the second round was a LBO case study, and that's like unheard of at like an entry level internship interview, and I was still able to kind of nail it. Um, I mean, unfortunately, I didn't move on with the process because apparently the other four just had other qualities they were looking for. But he complimented me at the end after I sent the thank you email saying like, "Hey, like we'll really look forward if you want to reach back in for full time if we have any openings." But just due to how competitive the process is, like you kind of just missed the cut. But I mean, I never felt so comfortable feeling like I can do the internship job before I actually start the internship. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so basically, the biggest difference, it sounds like, is a combination of, we're not asking you to memorize anything. We're
Yeah,
asking you everything conceptually, as in like I'm personally teaching. It's almost like having a banker personally tutor you
yeah,
topics versus you buying a book and trying to read the book on your own.
yeah,
Like, different level of effectiveness, and then on top of that, of course, you're gonna have questions. Except when you're reading a guide and you have questions, you still just kind of trying to figure it out on your own. Whereas here in Wall Street Mastermind, when you have questions, you can ask us anytime, basically, whether it's me or a lot of times nowadays, like other clients can jump in and we'll answer questions to each other. And then so you get like a really quick response, basically.
yeah, yeah,
Of it. And I mean that responsiveness is important, right? Because it allows you to not have to spin your wheels too much and just be able to always be making more progress, and versus like if you get stuck on something, you pull up Google and you open 20 different tabs and trying to read all these things, and then you may or may not still find the answer sometimes.
yeah.
Okay, got it. And I guess the last thing that just talk about is like you said that you actually didn't network before
Yeah.
mastermind.
Yeah.
Um, was that just like you didn't think you needed to, you weren't aware, or like, and even after we talked initially, because you know how we talked the first time, and then you decided to try on your own.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we talked about networking on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so you still didn't network after that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic, seems like a classic, problem here, not listening to you. But, I mean, yeah, yeah, to answer your question, I did not network. Yeah.
I see. And so then after you came in, obviously we have a lot of training on how to network effectively and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, talk to us about kind of like what you learned from that part of the program. Like, is it all just like common sense stuff that everybody probably already knows anyway, or like would you say that you learned stuff that you would have never been able to figure out on your own, or and how did that help you in terms of, I assume it helped you because you're saying you went from getting 2 interviews out of 40 banks to all of a sudden in our program in less than 2 months you got 7 interviews, right?
Yeah.
Was that the primary difference there in terms of how many interviews you were able to get, or was it something else?
Yeah. I mean, like, to be fair, I think the networking module was probably the most important because at the end of the day, you need to get the interview in the first place. Um, and coming from a non-target, it's you have to do a lot of like extra legwork. I mean, even the target schools, they still students still have to network there, but they have the luxury of on-campus recruiting and a lot of less red tape and like obscure lines you have to pass. Um, but what the thing with the networking module is like you get like these templates to send them for these emails and then personalize them. And they also teach you how to how to like reach out and find these bankers and get a high success rate. So you know I remember, I think the last time I checked I have like an Excel tab where Sam also provides, where you track all the emails, what stage you're at, where they go to school, what relationship you have with them, at what stage, if they answered your first email, they ignored it, when will you follow up. And that was a really great tracker to organize myself. And at the end, I think I sent out over like 300 emails in 2 months. And I got a response with over, I think about like 50% of them, around a little less.
Okay.
And that was with on calls. I remember there were weeks in my first month with Wall Street Mastermind where I was calling all day only, and I just didn't have time to do anything else. I remember I was on calls from like 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. sometimes. Um,
Like the entire day was just doing networking calls.
yeah, like one day I had like 15 calls in one day because everyone seemed to be only able to come in on a like call on a Thursday for some reason. Um, yeah, so like it was actually fun because like sometimes I would have to hard cut at 30 minutes with some of them, even though if the conversation was going good, I'd be like, hey, like sorry, I have something I have to run to. I'd love to pick this up. I know it's like kind of rude of me, but like it's just that one day just seemed to be really packed. But anyways, like basically what's important about networking is because you need to get past that resume screen that a lot of banks use, and then kind of have the support of the analysts, associates, VP, and upwards, to vouch for you for the interview, to say like, hey, this is a good candidate. And at the end of the day, and talking with some of the recruiters too at the banks, there's a lot of people who can do the job. A lot of people are qualified for the job. Um, and at that point, it's more of like, how do you differentiate yourself? Like, okay, this kid spent the time to reach out to current analysts and above. Like here, it really like shows he's done interest. It shows interest. Okay, he goes to the first screen, which is usually the technical screen. Okay, this kid obviously knows his stuff. And then usually the super day is like a check the boxes thing, because everyone knows at that point, if you're at the super day, you can do the job. It's more of like, can you fit with the team? And having that networking done beforehand, that work done beforehand, it's a good talking point in the interviews. Because like, hey, I spoke to Brian, for example, and then be like, oh, I know Brian. And then if you kind of, it's like a psychological thing. Like if you show that you and Brian had a good conversation in the third person, like they will just generally like kind of attract to you and have you better in mind. And they'll be like, okay, maybe after the interview, I'll send a note to Brian, see like how the conversation went. And if
Mm.
it really did went well, and hopefully you don't lie, it's just like an extra little like kind of brownie point in terms of passing through the interview process. So networking is definitely probably the most important module to me.
Mm. Got it. And what about like the actual? So obviously, sending over 300 emails, getting 50% response rate coming from a non-target school. I'm assuming most of these people weren't like alumni or anything. That's pretty darn good, right?
Yeah.
15 calls in a day. That might be a Wall Street Mastermind record. I'm pretty sure it is, but I mean that's pretty amazing. Um, but another part that people really struggle with too is like, okay, once you've actually, because the first struggle is like, oh, people won't respond to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not getting responses to my outreach. So you've kind of talked about that. The second thing that people struggle with the most when they actually network is like, okay, people responded and now I talk to them, but I don't know what to talk to them about. I don't know
Yeah.
last time, or like a lot of times what people do is probably just they have like a list of let's call it 10 questions and they just like I'm gonna ask them this question, I'm gonna ask them this
Yeah.
question, I'm gonna ask them this question. And then they just like every single conversation is like the exact same, right? And then at the end of the conversation, like you walk away and you're like, oh, I mean, it was a pleasant conversation, I guess. I mean, kind of boring, but pleasant. But I wonder if like this person is actually gonna help me, or
Yeah.
if they'll probably never talk to me again. You know, they just like they don't really know if they got anything out of that,
Yeah.
right? So, did you struggle with that at all? Did you experience that, or like how do we kind of solve that problem? I guess in terms of like the second part was just like how do you actually have good conversations with people?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where the technical modules really came in. They kind of, I think you went through a mock call with one of your past students. And also like the technical modules kind of told you like, yeah, it gave you like a question bank to ask, but also like you teach us how to just be a good person, person to speak on the phone with, because at the end of the day, like
You
the
mean
network,
networking module?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
I was kind of I was like, what's in a technical module?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. So networking module. Okay.
Yeah. And then like you taught us like the goal isn't to kind of just grill the guy you're speaking to on technical questions. Like you want to make it pleasant and you want to make it memorable, and also at the same time like sell yourself, because at the end of the day the analysts will get probably a lot of emails from their alma mater, strange like random kids that like they don't know, and like they only have a handful of spots they could really recommend. And it's like that's really your 30 minutes or so to really get like really leave a lasting impression. And I think the modules really help with that. And then when there's special cases, like I would message you personally and be like, hey, like I have like an alumni from school, but he is like XYZ. And it might be something that's not covered in the modules, but then you're there to like respond pretty promptly. um, and like a lot of these calls went pretty successful. I think in the beginning I was kind of nervous for sure, but over time I got more comfortable and realized that not to rely on the question bank so much as you mentioned, like hit all 10 questions in the call, be like, oh, I have to hit these questions. It's more of like see where the conversation flows and then ask the appropriate question at the right time.
Mm,
And if there's any awkward silence, then you could follow up with one of the question banks you have prepared.
mm,
And like you provide also these networking scripts that like usually work like 90% of the time with your calls. And like those helped a lot, and it just becomes second nature once you keep doing them.
right.
And one last point I want to, sorry, I'm like blabbering on, but one last point I want to put on about it is like I got, I remember an email from a GS analyst, and he was an alumni from school, but it wasn't even come recruiting time, because I think the application opened around like July 1st or something. And he emailed me 3 weeks before, and he's like, hey, like I internally recommended you. And I was just like, I didn't even say anything. And like this wasn't just him; it was like other places too, like at CS and like all the other bulge bracket banks. But the processes were a lot later for them for my non-target university, so ultimately didn't get to go through those processes. But to have like that nice backing without even having to like touch base again, I mean, just shows the type of relationship I was able to develop in that 30-minute call. And in the future, like if they ever need help, or if I ever need help again, like I don't feel like I have to hesitate ever to reach out. So I think I'd also like the networking is great for the internship. Also, like you develop and grow your network organically, and then they will also refer you. I think that was also big. They would refer me, like my alumni, to people who were not from my school, and then that's how like it kind of becomes like a domino effect where like you meet more and more people organically without having to feel it forced.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. I guess at this point, why don't we just are you comfortable telling people kind of like, so what was ultimately the outcome for your recruiting? Like, obviously we know it was successful, or we wouldn't be talking here today. But like, what are you going to be doing next summer?
Yeah, so I'm going to be joining BNP Paribas in their industry coverage group. I'm not sure which industry I'll be in yet, but based off conversations that I've been told, it'll be either in TMT or industrials. So yeah, I'll be doing their working on multiple types of products. They said like within whatever industry I get put in.
Yeah, and just like you got this offer, what, in June?
Yeah, mid June. Yeah,
Okay, got it. Yeah, and so like you were saying earlier, like you pretty much even if this one didn't hadn't worked out, I'm glad it did, but even if it
yeah,
hadn't worked out, sounds like you had other referrals in the pipeline and you would have had more opportunities. But obviously, hey, with the nature of the recruiting is just like you kind of have to take the first offer you get, right? Because
yeah.
nothing's ever guaranteed, and so that's awesome. So I mean, I'm sure you're super glad to be done with the process. People usually are. Do you have any kind of last minute advice for people who are maybe listening? Maybe they're, I don't know, like from a non-target school, or maybe they're in a similar situation that you used to be in. Or like, what's one thing that, let's say, like if you put yourself in their shoes, or if you're someone who's thinking about recruiting for banking now, what's one thing that you wish someone had told you much earlier? Or what's one thing that you wish you had known back then that would have helped you tremendously?
Yeah. I think if I were to give advice to my, past self, knowing what I know now, I think don't be afraid to take risks. There's definitely a risk involved with, joining any kind of program you don't know about, right? That sounds too good to be true initially on paper, but you have to realize, like, do your due diligence, get on the call with Sam. It's a free consultation. You can't go wrong anyways. And like listen to the testimonials and, you know, I realized, like, yeah, it seems like a big investment financially up front, but at the end of the day, the amount is very small in retrospect to your whole life. Like if you guys know anything about investment banking recruiting, your summer analyst, like junior year summer, is basically the gateway to your full time job. As long as you don't mess it up, and that paves the way for your next few years. And like if you're willing to take the risk and I feel like jump on that boat and feel like, hey, I'll put this investment up front and I'll put in the legwork and I'll get the guidance from Sam and the other current candidates that you'll be working with at the time. Like the ROI is just like, it's incomparable. This, like, if you really like investment banking and you really see yourself there, I mean, you just got to do it, man. I mean, I can't really say, I mean, like, it's a long, arduous process if you do it on your own. Even with Sam's support, it's still, difficult. Like no matter what, you're still going to have to put in the effort, but having like that coach there is just, and like all the other coaches like Allison and like Adele and all the others, like they're just really strong. Like, they provide a lot of strong guidance and they've all gone through it. They understand, and they bring a lot of different kind of perspectives on the recruiting process. So, I think if I were to give my advice, I mean, I think just don't be afraid to take risk and just, know that it's going to be a hard process and never kind of be discouraged.
Yeah. You brought up a couple of things there. One is like the willingness to take risks, right? Which, I think a lot of people are afraid to take risks in life. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people that ask, like, well, like, is there a guarantee that I'm gonna get a job, right? No, there's no guarantees. Like,
Yeah.
nothing in life is guaranteed, right? Like, if you really think about it, if you really stop to think about it, it's like, name me one good thing in life that's like guaranteed. There's nothing. Like,
Yeah.
there's we're all guaranteed that we're all gonna die one day, and then like we're all guaranteed that you better pay your taxes or
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
But other than that, like what good thing is actually guaranteed? Like nothing, right? You have to earn it. But the biggest thing about risk that I've learned is that the people who are successful in life, they're not afraid to take risks because they all understand that. I think Jack Canfield said this. He's like, one of the most famous personal development and success coaches in the world. Um, he wrote like Chicken Soup for the Soul, if you've heard that book. But
Yeah.
it's like to get to the next level, if you want to get to the next level, you have to take risks, right? Like if you think of all the most successful people that you ever heard of, to get to where they are today, they all had to take some risks along the way. Nobody ever got to become super successful just by playing it safe, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even saying this is not safe, but it's just like my point is because by definition, if you're unwilling to take risks, that means it's like, hey, you just want to stay in your comfort zone and you just want to like keep doing the things that you're already doing, keep doing the things that you already know how to do. But by definition, that limits you because you're just gonna basically keep getting the same results that you've already gotten, right?
Yeah.
And if you're trying to grow, you're trying to develop, you're trying to become better, you have to stretch yourself, right? And maybe that's a little bit scary and like risk makes it sound like a bad thing. But you think about it, like you want to take calculated risks. You want to take good risks
Yeah.
where um like Warren Buffett, let's just pick Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio or whoever, all these the top investors in the world, every time they make an investment, they're taking a risk.
Yeah.
Is that bad? No, it's not bad because if they weren't willing to take risks, then they just put their entire fund's money into like T-bills or treasury, like
Yeah.
risk-free investments, right? And then they'll earn what 1 to 2% a year. They would have never become like the most successful investors in the world that way, right?
Yeah.
Every time they buy a stock, they understand that hey, there's a chance I might lose money here,
Yeah.
but they have conviction that 9 out of 10 times I'm going to be right. 1 out of 10 times I might be wrong. But then the times when I'm right, the upside is huge. The one time that I may be wrong, like I've done my due diligence to make sure that the downside is limited. That way, like over the long run, always going to come out ahead, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that risk itself um, is a bad thing. It's just like you have to understand that, hey, they say in investing, high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward. It's
Exactly. Yeah.
almost like a law that cannot be changed, right? Um, but it comes down to like you knowing how to take calculated risk and you knowing how to manage that risk. And if
Yeah.
you manage it properly, then over the long run, you're going to do very, very well, right? And so, I mean, I think that's just such a great point that you brought up. And it's like, not even about investment banking, but if you guys want to be successful in life, you got to model your thinking after other people who are successful, right? You got to
Yeah.
think, hey, what do the successful people do? What are they doing? Like, and do I want to be like this type of person or do I want to be this type of person? Right? Do I want to be the type of person that takes smart, calculated risks after having done all the proper due diligence? Or do I want to be the type of person that just stays in my comfort zone and never grows and never challenges myself and just stays stuck? Right? It's easier to choose the latter.
Yeah.
But if you want to be different, if you want to be special, if you want to be, you know, better than your peers or whatever, then you got to stop doing just what everyone else is doing.
Exactly.
Different.
Yeah. For all the people throwing their life savings into options trading on Robinhood, I mean, this is you could use this towards this. So just FYI.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. It's like people, it's sometimes it's not even that people aren't willing to take risks, but they take dumb risks, right? Like
Yeah.
throw your money into options trading on Robinhood, that's a dumb risk.
Yeah.
Where the you want the upside and the downside, you probability weight each one. Like how likely is it that I'm right? How likely is it that I'm wrong? And then you want that to be asymmetrical, where you don't want it to be about like 50-50. There's a coin flip chance that I'm right and coin flip chance that I'm wrong. You want it to be, hey, like the upside, the probability weighted upside is so much higher than the probability weighted downside. Those are the bets that you want to make.
Yeah.
So coming back to this program, the upside is tremendous. Like if you get into
Yeah.
making, like I don't want to exaggerate, but you're like mostly set for your career, right?
Yeah.
um, that's huge. And if it doesn't work out, like, okay, yeah, like we're living right now 94% success rate, right? So, okay, what if I'm part of the 6%? Well, yeah, so you probability weighted like 94 versus 6, and then also like, upside's tremendous. If I'm wrong, okay, then I guess I'm wrong, but it's not going to ruin my life,
Yeah.
right?
And plus, you still gain the skills necessary that, if you want to, let's say you're not successful in junior year, you can go full time. Or if you change careers, like interviewing is still a skill that's like interview networking. It's still a skill used anywhere.
Interviewing
So,
is a life skill, networking is
yeah.
a life skill. These are all skills that are still going to benefit you for the rest of your life. Investment banking just happens to be the toughest field to break into. But
Yeah.
the bar is here and you got like this good and you just missed the cut. Well, you still more than qualified enough for everything else that you could possibly do.
Exactly.
So anyway, I think that's a great piece of advice, dude. So thank you for sharing that. Look, let's wrap up here because I don't want to keep you any longer. But guys, I don't really have anything more to add on top of what Michael has already said. I think this has been a phenomenal interview, to be honest. Super insightful, and hopefully you guys found it to be beneficial and helpful to you guys. If you guys are kind of in a similar spot that Michael used to be in, maybe you've been trying to do this on your own and you're struggling and not getting the results that you want, or maybe you haven't started yet but you're about to start and you want to avoid going through all of that. I would encourage you guys, like Michael said, book a free strategy session with us. It's absolutely free. It's on the house. There's no strings attached. Like, it doesn't hurt to talk to us. It's just um, get some advice at a minimum. But talk to us. Tell us about your situation. We'll learn more about you and figure out like, hey, what are your goals and what it is that you feel like you need help with to actually get there. And then, like Michael mentioned earlier, like we don't work with everybody. So if it's a really, really good fit, obviously happy to kind of talk to you about it. But even if it's not the best fit, at a minimum, we have a lot of experience and a lot of expertise to just be able to point you in the right direction and still help you make more progress than you would have been able to make on your own, right? So again, it's absolutely free. I encourage you guys to book this. If you want to do that, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And we'll hop on the call. We'll talk to you, and then we could see, what's the best thing for you to do. All right. So um, with that, I think let's wrap this up. Michael, again, thank you so much for taking so much time to come on here and talk to everyone today. Um, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure others who listen to this will enjoy as well. And just really appreciate you for doing it. And of course, congratulations again on all the success. And I'm glad you came back, and I'm glad we helped you. And I can't wait to see what you accomplish, not just next summer during your internship, but even beyond that, right? And as you start on your career. And so, um, you're always going to be part of the family. And so don't be a stranger. If we could ever help you with anything else, definitely let us know. And let's stay in touch.
Definitely. Yeah, guys, just listen to Sam. Just just don't do it. Just don't do it on your
Yeah, don't choose the path of most resistance.
own. Yes.
Easier and better way, and it can change your life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you, man, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back again with more of these client interviews for you guys in the near future. All right. Bye.